good morning to everyone present here. I am Jigyasa Sani from BSc Physics Honors second year. And now I would like to request our President, Ms. Diksha Arora, to come and welcome our teacher.
Good morning, everyone. I am Diksha, President of Research Cell. I am very honored to welcome and introduce our main chief guest, Mr. Prateek Kumar. Mr. Prateek Kumar completed his Bachelor of Technology in Physical Sciences in 2014 from Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, Trivandrum. Since then, he has been working as a scientist in Space Application Center, ISRO, Ahmedabad. His area of work includes satellite meteorology, remote sensing of atmosphere, and evaluating various atmospheric parameters of temperature and humidity. His hobbies include computer programming in Python, chess, traveling, and table tennis. He is going to enlighten us with a national talk on remote sensing of atmosphere. I humbly welcome you, sir.
It's a great honor to have you, Prateek sir, with us today. So I welcome you on the behalf of whole Bhagni Nivedita family. We will just start your lecture by our principal ma'am has joined.
Now I request our respected principal of Bhagni Nivedita College, Dr. Charu Sharma, the woman of distinct vision and a fountainhead of illuminating ideas, and an idol of knowledge and experience and inspiration to all of us, to share some thought on this occasion.
Hello. Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Good morning, everyone. I am very sorry that I had to take a few minutes off before joining in. So I hope everybody is here, and this is a very exciting moment for all of our students, I would say, who are really looking forward to this occasion of celebration of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai's birthday, and also celebrating the Indian Space Science Week, which begins from today. So it's interesting to have amongst us, I see audience not only from our own college, but we have from different colleges also, which is a great thing. And I'm sure they all must be really looking forward to this talk today by Mr. Prateek. Welcome, Mr. Prateek. You are talking about remote sensing of atmosphere. It seems to be an interesting topic which even I would love to, know and get enlightened about. So I would love to be here for whatever long I can be, and I'm sure the students are going to benefit out of it. And I also would like to take this opportunity to congratulate this very excellent team of our faculty members and the students who are engaged with the research cell. And they have been actively, very, very proactively organizing such events in which students are also participating, and they are sort of collaborating, which is a very good thing. And I hope, you all continue to work in this direction and under the guidance of Dr. Vishal. So, Vishal, I really want to congratulate you, and my best wishes always to keep doing all the good work that you're doing. So please go ahead for the session today, and very warm welcome to Prateek ji. Everybody looking forward to your talk.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for these encouraging words. I know you have a busy schedule and you took time for us, so that is very encouraging for me and for all the students, organizers as well. So thank you so much for joining. Please open the session so we can start by the talk.
So definitely. So the research cell today is proceeding ahead, and I open this session, and I hope you all have a very, very enlightening session, and you give your comments, your feedback also after the session. So please go ahead. All the best.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your great words. Now, I'm very honored to welcome and introduce our main chief guest, Mr. Prateek Kumar, scientist in Space Application Center, ISRO, Ahmedabad. He is going to enlighten us with a national webinar on remote sensing atmosphere. I humbly welcome you, sir. And you are requested to switch off mics and cameras. Now, let us have the pleasure of listening to the great words of our honorable guest.
Very good morning to all of you.
Morning, sir.
So, in this webinar of today, we will discuss about remote sensing of atmosphere. So, most of you are undergraduate doing BSc or MSc in physics, so you will get very familiar terms and you will know these concepts are very similar to physics. So, first of all, before we start, let's think about what is remote sensing. So, what do we mean by sensing? Sensing is obtaining information from anything, and as a human we have 5 our natural senses such as eyes, ears, nose, tongue and skin. So the instrument that used to sense information are known as sensors. So these are our sensors: eyes, ears, nose. So what do? They provide us the data around the whole world, around our environment. So we see video from our eyes, sound from our ears, smell from nose. So there are tons of data every day we process, and our brain is so efficient that without ever our realizing, we are processing so much of information that is much better than by any great supercomputer. So here we are discussing about remote sensing. So what do we mean by remote? Meaning of remote is from a distance, not having physical contact. So this can be taken as analogy to a remote control. From TV, this sends IR radiation and we can change the channels of TV. So without ever touching on the TV, for example, if you go in old days, there used to be a buttons on TV. On pressing buttons we can change the channel, but now from remotes we can easily change the channel. There are also many other examples. So overall the concept is to obtain information without having any physical contact. And what do we mean by remote sensing of Earth? It means the same concept apply to our Earth. We observe Earth from a distance. Now if we want to observe Earth from a distance, we have to observe it from a very, very great altitude, thousands of kilometers. So among our 5 natural human sensor, if we go back to previous slides, so we can infer that eyes, ears and nose can work as remote sensors, because we can get information without ever having physical contact, without ever touching. But if we think of this skin or tongue, these are the normal sensor we have to touch in order to get information. So another example we can see by this is the thermometer, as you all know, and it is used to measure temperature. But how it's measure temperature? It requires physical contact with the object. If we want to measure the temperature of our, then we have to put it under our tongue. So with physical contact it's measuring temperature. But nowadays there are this thing happening, and now we have invented this IR thermometer. It sends IR radiation, and from the reflection of IR radiation it measures the temperature. So here without ever touching we get to know about the temperature. So this is the remote sensor. This is the idea of remote sensing. What? Voice is audible?
Yes, sir, audible. Please continue.
Yes.
Sorry for inconvenience.
So Now, suppose like this thermometer, we measure temperature of human body. Now, what if we want to measure the temperature of atmosphere? So for that, what we do, we usually send balloons. So in balloons are sent because they can go up in the atmosphere, usually helium gas in there, and below this balloon there are temperature and humidity sensors are there, thermistors and hydrometers are there. So as balloon goes up in the atmosphere, the instrument measure temperature and humidity, and we get temperature and humidity profile at various heights. So generally radio sonde go up to 30 kilometers up in the atmosphere. So we have temperature, humidity at every level up to 30 kilometers. So this can be think of as a thermometer of an atmosphere. So this is the most direct approach of atmospheric measurements, and these weather balloons are known as radio sonde. Now what happens in weather prediction, we need data from so many places at same time. So we send radio sonde all over the world. Radio sonde is sent at 0 and 12 UTC. That is GMT. Okay. So now we come to remote sensing of atmosphere. In the remote, this was normal sensing like thermometer. Now we come to how we measure atmosphere by this without ever sending the radio sonde. So that is by satellite. So satellites observe the earth at so many different infrared wavelengths, and different wavelengths are sensitive to different layer of atmosphere, and because of different sensitivity of different layers, because of this that we can obtain information about temperature at different level. What are the advantages of radio sonde observation? We have more temporal coverage. As you see here, radio sonde are sent at only 2 times a day, 0 and 12 UTC. But with satellites we can have data at every hour. And we have coverage over very large area. In India, with Indian satellites we can have coverage over entire Indian subcontinent, including India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka and China as well. But in radio sonde, as you see, there all over India there are 40 radio sonde stations, mostly at airports. So radio sonde act as a point observation. We have temperature, but only at a point, only at 40 points we have temperature. But what if we want to know temperature at the remote places, in the forest or in the oceans? In the oceans, how can you measure temperature? So in those remote areas, satellites help us to get an idea. But it's not like that satellites have all advantages only. There are few disadvantages, such as because satellites are at very high altitude. Geostationary satellites have altitudes around 36,000 kilometers. So if you look at Earth from that much height, your camera have to be of very high quality, very high resolution. So instrument need to be very perfect. That is one thing. And even if instrument is very perfect, still resolution is not as good as compared to radio sonde, because their method of measurements is also different. Satellite measure radiance, and from the radiance it is deriving temperature, while radio sonde is directly measuring the temperature. So obviously the accuracy of radio sonde will always be better than satellite. But the idea is these two things complement each other. So we measure the temperature from satellite, and we can calibrate it from radio sonde. Like you must have heard with calibration of thermometer, like that. So now we come to the definition of satellite. What is satellite? So satellite is a celestial body that orbits around a planet. Why it's orbit around a planet? Because the planet has a much bigger mass than its satellite, and from the law of gravitation, these all things are bound by the Newton's laws of gravitation. Now, here what we mean by satellite is artificial satellite, that is man-made satellite that orbit around Earth. So natural satellite may have purpose or without any purpose, but for artificial satellite we are spending money, we are sending them in space, so they must have some purpose to fill. That's why we are sending. So they have purpose like communication, navigation, and Earth observation. So communication, you all know, you all have televisions in your house, satellite televisions. And navigation, we have GPS in our mobile, GPS, and ISRO is also sending our own IRNSS have sent. And now the third category is Earth observation satellite. This is the category that we will focus in this webinar today. So Earth observation satellite, what they do, like from the word it's clear, they observe the Earth, they observe the Earth atmosphere, they observe the weather. Here also there are two categories, one that focus on land and land use, land processes, and the other is focusing on atmosphere, weather. So we will see what are the atmospheric satellite, remote sensing of atmosphere. So we can think of Earth observation satellite as a very big eye that is observing us from a huge distance. You can think like 36,000 kilometers, where entire Earth is visible like a small ball, small beautiful blue color ball. So not only that, from 36,000 kilometers there are lower Earth orbiting also, that is 800 to 2000 kilometers. So there are two types of satellite, they have their own purpose. Why these orbits are defined, you will see. Earth rotates from west to east, so this is west to east it is rotating. Now polar orbiting satellite orbits like this, in this pole. So as Earth is rotating, after a certain number of rotation, it has the capability to cover the entire Earth. However, in geostationary satellite, Earth is rotating like this, and along with Earth, the satellite is also rotating like this. So here why this height is very accurate. If you must have heard the Newton's laws of gravitation, there the time period of the satellite is equal to 23 hours 56 minutes 4 seconds to be precise. So for that, this need to be at height of 35,786. Here what will happen, this is the point directly below the Earth, it is known as nadir. So when anyone looking at Earth, anyone at Earth looking at the satellite will see this satellite is not moving at all. You know, in physics, from relative motion, if two objects are moving at same speed, then the people in the object feel that it's stationary. They are stationary relative to each other. So relative to Earth, satellites appear stationary. That's why it's known as geostationary orbit. So it has time period of 1 day. Here what my point was, the polar orbiting satellite can cover the entire Earth, but since this is fixed and it is looking at only one side of Earth, suppose if we think of this one, this will only looking at this South America and North America. It is not looking at India because India is behind. So it covers around 40% of the Earth. So that is the different purpose of these orbits. But the advantage of geostationary having polar is it is continuously looking at this. So we can have data at every hour, every half an hour also. But here 1 day time it's looking at this, and till then it's moving, the earth will also rotate. Then another time it's looking at different region, another time it has different region. So around a day, at one point we may have at max 2 times a day, like reduce one day, but here we can have continuous data coverage. Now, what do satellite measure? Satellite measure radiances. What is radiances? Radiance is electromagnetic energy per unit time, per unit area, per unit wavelength, and per unit solid angle. Now, if we see a light coming from a distance, as the distance increases, the intensity of light decreases. However, this is intensity. You can think of radiance as intensity, but how it's different? It is per unit solid angle. So what is solid angle? Any object, you know the angle. Angle is in 2D. Solid angle, you can think of angle is in 3 dimension. So any type of round object will subtend an angle like this, theta. It's known as solid angle. So when we divide radiance with this solid angle, what happens? This radiance become independent of distance. It become a constant quantity with respect to distance. Now, weather satellites have usually multiple sensors. Like INSAT 3D have 18 IR sensors and 1 visible sensor. So they measure radiances at different wavelength. Now this is the entire electromagnetic spectrum. So you can think a spectrum as the colors, different colors of light. Among all these colors, only this is visible. So this is visible light. Here this is red has shorter wavelength and blue has higher wavelength. So these are the wavelength. You can see this wavelength is decreasing, frequency is increasing. So shorter wavelength has blue light and longer wavelength has red. Beyond red we say as infrared, and above violet, shortest is violet, above violet that is ultraviolet. In this spectrum, these X-rays and gamma rays are used by astronomers, and radio waves also. You must have heard about X-ray astronomy, gamma ray bursts to study. And here IR spectrum is mostly what we do here in atmospheric sciences. So we have satellites that have channels in this region, infrared windows, that is 4 to 15 microns. Along with that, we have some channels in microwave also. There are different satellites for microwave. Apart from these satellite applications, there are also other applications in different this electromagnetic spectrum. You can see in the below, like nuclear power uses gamma rays, and in medicines we have X-rays, and these ultraviolet rays causes sunburn. That's shown, these visible lights and remotes. And we as a human body also emit IR radiation. If you have heard about Kirchhoff's law, it says that above absolute zero all bodies emit radiation according to their temperature. So sun has a high temperature around 6000 Kelvin, so it emits radiation in the visible region, and we have low temperature, earth have low temperature, so we emit radiation in the IR radiation. However, the irony is we can only see this small portion of light, we cannot see this, so we cannot have any idea what color may this have. However, we can feel some of this radiation, like we can feel infrared radiation as heat. Whenever we feel hotness somewhere, it's because of this IR radiation. Now we come to black body radiation. So this is the Planck's black body function. Any object that is perfect black body will emit radiation according to this law. This is dependent on wavelength and temperature. and the peak wavelength is inversely proportional to temperature. This is known as Wien's displacement law. As we increase the temperature, the peak wavelength will decrease. So like here in the sun, we can see as peak wavelength is around green light. So it has around 5800 Kelvin temperature. So this is the visible spectrum. Sun emits in visible spectrum. Like sun, Earth also emit. This is the radiation emitted by Earth. It peaks around 10 micron. So Earth emits in infrared spectrum. So suppose if our eyes are capable of looking at IR radiation, then there we don't have problem at night. We don't have to put tube lights and so many lights at night time, because then we can not only see the Earth, we can also see ourselves at light, because we as human body also emit IR radiations. So what satellite does, satellite IR channel try to focus on this radiation, atmospheric sensing satellite, while land use satellite also use this radiation also. If you think about whatever we see the reflected radiation. Okay, radiation from sun hits at the objects and object reflected back, and then we see reflected by sun or reflected radiation emitted from the sun or emitted by any other light source like bulb, tube light or anything. That's why when the light source is switched off, we cannot see. At night we cannot see anything, because we see only reflected radiation. Emitted radiation, why we cannot see? Because most of the things around us emits radiation at IR wavelength, and IR is invisible. We can only feel it. What about non-black bodies? So in reality, every object is not a perfect black body, it's a non-black body. Kirchhoff law says that non-black body will emit radiation in this fashion, this epsilon lambda into b lambda t. Epsilon lambda will be 0 to 1. It is known as emissivity. So it will not emit as much as black body. It will emit some portion of it. But more or less Earth behaves as, approximately we can say, behaves as black body. This is the emissivity map of India. Here you can see that minimum 0.9 to 1. So ocean has a fairly constant emissivity because ocean has no roughness, but land, we have different land types, so land emissivity is varying like this. Also emissivity is a function of wavelength. Here we can see how this emissivity is varying at different IR wavelength. So in the remote sensing area, I will show you in next slide. In land use remote sensing, this term is very important, emissivity, because this is the main thing. Atmosphere is a noise, but in atmospheric remote sensing of atmosphere, for us, we have land as a noise, and atmosphere profile, the area above the surface, is our main target area. So what are the effects of atmosphere? So satellites are, very well above the Earth atmosphere. Earth atmosphere, you can think as of 90% of Earth atmosphere is within 10 kilometers, and above 500 kilometers there are very less air density. You can think it as an outer space. So satellites are much above than this. So what radiation they will get? They will get these three types of radiation. First is the reflected solar energy. Solar energy is also known as short wave radiation because they have short wavelength. So sun's energy comes, hits on the earth, some of them energy will be absorbed and some of the reflected. So that radiation, reflected radiation, will be detected by the satellite. And some of the radiation can be reflected by clouds also. So we see clouds in the satellite images also. The other radiation we see from the satellite is the emitted energy. And not only Earth, atmosphere itself can also emit energy. Like clouds also emit their own radiation. Now the whole principle in satellite remote sensing is based on this radiative transfer equation. You must have known about Lambert's and Beer's law in physics, how the intensity is decreased in the material by absorption. Along with absorption, as the radiation propagates into the medium, there is emission also. If we think of in terms of satellite, what satellite will see. So absorption by material, emission by material. Third thing is scattering. If the light is scattering out to other direction, that will be negative, and if it's scattering in, that will be positive. So this D of L is the radiance, you can think of monochromatic radiance, and DSS is the distance. So change of radiance with distance will be equal to these four terms. So this is the differential form of radiative transfer equation. And if we neglect the terms this C and D and we integrate with respect to distance, then we get this integrated form of radiative transfer equation. This equation is known as Schwarzschild equation. Here, if you look at closely, this consists of two terms. One is this and other one is this. So this L0 is the radiance emitted at surface, and this exponential is because atmosphere is above. So atmosphere will absorb many of the radiation from surface. So this you can think of as optical depth of atmosphere. And so this is the surface contribution in the satellite, and this is the contribution from all atmosphere. So atmosphere have many, atmosphere has a height, so that's why we have integrated over the height. You can divide atmosphere into very, very small tiny layers, and you can sum. So summation over tiny variables is known as integration. And why this del not minus del lambda? At particular layer it will emit, but the layers above the atmosphere will absorb this radiation. That's why we have these negative terms. So this can be considered as optical depth of a particular atmospheric layer, and we are summing over those layers. Now, this I told earlier. If we look at this is the surface term and this is the atmosphere term. Now, if we want to do remote sensing of land, the first term is more important. This will act as noise. So people do atmospheric correction in the images. Correction because of these terms. And for atmospheric scientist, this surface term is noise. We do surface correction because of surface effect. For us, this second term is important, and for land users, this first term is important. So in this example, we can see that same thing can be data for someone and noise for someone else. Same quantity. For remote sensing of land, atmospheric act as a noise, atmospheric correction is required, and land people use visible and near IR bands, because what we want to do in land, we want to detect vegetation, water bodies, these things. So how we can detect? Based on visible radiation also. Visible and near infrared, they have different spectral response function, such as crops have different spectral signatures. So from this we can detect land feature. What about atmosphere? Atmosphere, now when we when we analyze the radiance from atmosphere, we want to remove the radiance coming from land, especially reflected radiance from land. So what we do for that, mostly radiance reflected in the visible region. Sun visible light, we observe sun visible reflected light. So what atmospheric scientists do, they don't use that channel at all. We don't use visible light at all. We look from the IR light. So we have long IR, short IR, mid IR also. We have infrared and microwave bands. And what is our application? We take measurements in different IR channels to get temperature, humidity and ozone profiles based on different absorption at different wavelengths. So this is the absorption spectrum in the visible and ultraviolet, visible and near IR. So here we have O3 absorption. O3 absorb ultraviolet light, as we all know. So this has wavelength less than 250 nanometer. This is ultraviolet light absorbed by ozone in the stratosphere. Then we have some oxygen absorption bands and water vapor, carbon dioxide absorption band. These in the visible, UV, visible and IR region for land use. Now in the atmosphere, for atmosphere use, we have to use as this bigger range, mid IR, far IR. Here if you see, the wavelength is 250 nanometer, that is 0.25 micron to 2.5 micron. 1 micron has 1000 nanometer. 1 micron means 1 micrometer. Here we have wavelengths at start around, we usually derive temperature from 3 to 15. For deriving temperature we use mainly carbon dioxide absorption bands. Why, I will show you later. So here in the atmospheric absorption, we in this IR band we have these water vapor absorption bands and carbon dioxide. Here this is a big band around 5 to 7.5, 5.5 to 7.5. This is the water vapor absorption band. Here if we look at the earth in this wavelength, we cannot see the surface of earth. What we see the water vapor in the earth atmosphere. So this band is very important to detect the total precipitable water, motion of water vapor in the earth atmosphere. Ideally the spectrum should look like this. This is Planck's law, black body radiation, but in reality the spectrum looks like this. We have so many absorption line, like same here in IR. IR, this is the lower end of spectrum. So we have this water vapor absorption, carbon dioxide and so many absorption. Here you see a small dip is there. This is the ozone absorption band, 9.6 micron. This channel is used to derive ozone profile. Now what is the principle of atmospheric sounding? As I shown in radiative transfer equation, every layer of earth atmosphere emit radiation and earth also emit radiation. And if you look at the atmosphere density decreases with height. So in the lowest region there will be highest emittance, because density is highest, number of particles, number of molecules per unit volume will be highest, so emittance will be highest. As the height increase, this is the height in kilometers, this is the pressure, this is 1000 hectopascal pressure, this is 100 and this is 10. Pressure decreases as height because density decreases. Around 10 kilometer the pressure will reduce as 100. So emittance decreases with increase with height, and the transmittance will increase. Why? As we go up, the number of molecules will be less, number of intervening atmosphere will be less, so it's highly likely that the radiation coming from the top of atmosphere will reach directly to the satellite. So transmittance will increase and emittance will decrease. So these are two opposite effects. So the net radiation will be product of this. So emittance is also monotonically decreasing. So you can think it as related with height. So rate of change of transmittance with height is known as weighting function. So you can think of product of these. So weighting function will have a peak of here. What does this imply? What does weighting function mean? For a particular channel, channel means wavelength. Wavelength band to be more precise. So if we look at a particular wavelength, this weighting function is peaking at 100 hectopascal. So satellite having wavelength at this will observe atmosphere at 100 hectopascal. So this is the meaning of weighting function. Means that channel is sensitive to upper atmosphere. It will not look at the surface, it will look at the upper atmosphere. But we have not single channel, we have so many channels in satellites, like 18 channels, some have 13, 14. So different channels have different weighting functions. So some channels are sensitive to, suppose this 40 kilometer, some are sensitive to 30 kilometers, some are 15 kilometer. So what is the advantage of this? We can look Earth at different height using these channels. Channel, you can think of it as eyes. So we have different kind of eyes of satellite which is looking at different height in Earth atmosphere. So by looking at different heights, we can get to know about the idea of temperature. What can be different temperature at different height? If we derive the temperature at different height, then we know the temperature profile. Like this, we can get the humidity and ozone profile also. So these are the diverse atmospheric profiles at 137 pressure level. This is the temperature. Here the units are in Kelvin. If you want to convert into Celsius, you can subtract 273.16 from this. And these are the pressure. So 1000 hectopascal, this 110, 1.01, 0.02. So if we look at this profile, temperature decreases with height in the troposphere. If we go 1 kilometer, temperature will decrease around 6 degrees Celsius. And that is known as lapse rate. Here, when the temperature stops increasing, that point we known as tropopause. After tropopause, temperature becomes fairly constant for some height. After that, it started to increase here in this region. So with height, temperature is increasing. Can you guess why? Because this is the stratosphere, and in the stratosphere we have ozone concentration. Ozone absorbs ultraviolet rays. So because of absorption of ultraviolet radiation, the temperature will increase. After stratosphere, the temperature will again decrease. This is the humidity profile. Here the units are in gram per kilogram. So at the surface, humidity will be highest because density is highest. As density increase, humidity will decrease exponentially. This is the ozone profile. So as we see, in the region where temperature is increasing, ozone concentration will be maximum. Ozone is found in the stratosphere. We are lucky that it's not in the troposphere, because ozone as a gas acts as a pollutant. Ozone in the troposphere can cause atmospheric pollution, but in the stratosphere it acts as a lifesaver because it protects us from ultraviolet light. So the same thing can act as pollution at some places and act as lifesaver at other places. That's very beautiful thing to know. Now we come to Indian weather satellite, INSAT 3D. So till now we have discussed about the principle of remote sensing, what the satellite measures and how we can deduce information from the atmosphere using that satellite. Now in India, for Indian region, in ISRO, which satellite we mainly use for atmospheric application is this INSAT 3D. In 2016, INSAT 3D-R is also launched. So it was launched in 2013. It's a geostationary satellite, so it is appear fixed relative to Earth, and it will observe only Indian subcontinents and others. It is located at 82 degree east, and it has two meteorological payload, imager and sounder. So imager, as the name suggests, it took the full image of the Earth, full disk image of the Earth. So it has 6 channels, 1 visible channels, 1 near infrared, 1 mid infrared, 1 water vapor, and that is 6 to 8 micron absorption channel, and 2 infrared channels. So we have 2 eyes in infrared. So this is 2 IR channel have been deployed to detect sea surface temperature on Earth. And in sounder we have 19 channels, 19 infrared channels, 1 visible, 7 long wave, 5 mid wave, and 6 short wave. Sounder is used to derive vertical profile of atmosphere. Sounding means to obtain information at depth, various depth. So in atmosphere we have heights. To obtain information at various heights we have this sounder. So these are the wavelength specification of INSAT 3D imager. Here the resolution means is in image. If we look at image, digital image has pixels. So 1 pixel of image corresponds to how much area on the ground. It is known as ground resolution. So visible has 1 kilometer resolution. Sphere means short wave IR, this mid IR, water vapor, thermal infrared 1, thermal infrared 2. These are the abbreviation, and these have the resolution. So visible and sphere has 1 kilometer resolution, MIR has 4, water vapor has 8, and other 2 has 4 kilometer. So it's very great things. If you think like this, you are looking from a 36,000 kilometers and you obtain 1 kilometer resolution. So you can think of how super resolution the camera must have. So this is the full disk image of Earth from INSAT 3D. Here is our country, and here you see this is visible light, okay, 0.65 micrometer. This is short wave IR, this is MIR, water vapor, TIR1, TIR2. Now you maybe think of why we use so many channels, why only we simply take photograph as we take camera by using visible light, why we need IR light. Now you can see in visible light the snow and cloud both look like same. Cloud also white, snow is also white. If you want to differentiate between cloud and snow, then how can you differentiate them? For that we can use this shortwave IR. Here shortwave IR 1.6 micrometer, what it does, snow absorb this wavelength. So snow will appear black in this. So if you look at this image closely, here you can see the clouds, ice clouds, but here you cannot see. Here in the Himalaya, in the visible, it is snow, but we cannot say whether it is snow or it is cloud. But in here, everything you see is clouds, and here we cannot see anything on Himalayas because it is the snow and this absorb the snow. So to distinguish between cloud and snow, this is one application. And if we want to look at water vapor in the atmosphere, So this is the water vapor image. Here you can here you find it difficult to observe our India map. It might be here because what we see in this image, the water vapor in the mid atmosphere, mid troposphere, and these are the thermal infrared. What happens? There are many clouds, thin cirrus clouds that are transparent clouds, which we cannot see from eyes. Very thin clouds are there, but these are need to be detected. So for that, thermal infrared channel is used. It is detected in this, but we cannot see in visible channel. How we can see this in thermal infrared? Because they have low temperature. So this, white patches here, these are those thin cirrus clouds which we cannot see in visible image. So all different IR channels have different purpose to look in the atmosphere. Now this is the another main application. Insert 3D imager at night. In visible you will see nothing, because at night if you click a picture at night, all is dark, so nothing is visible. But IR Earth emit IR radiation at all times, 24 hours. So we can have 24/7 images of Earth at any time, even at night time also. So this is the main advantage of having IR channel. We can have data at night time. Here you can observe the cyclone is coming, but in the visible we cannot observe. So these are the various other geophysical products from INSAT 3D imager. By using these 6 channels, what we can derive? We can derive outgoing long wave radiation, upper tropospheric humidity, surface insolation, cloud winds, water vapor winds, this sea surface temperature SST, quantitative precipitation estimate, aerosols, fogs, snow, fire and smoke. So these are the so varieties of application you can see, and from this you can infer that how satellite is helping in disaster management. Satellites are saving a lot of life from tropical cyclones, from thunderstorms by this. Now we come to another instrument. This was imager and this is sounder. Sounder provides vertical profiles of temperature, humidity, ozone at 40 pressure levels. It has 18 IR channel and 1 visible channel. It has spatial resolution of 10 km. Imager has 1 km, but it has 10 km. And temporal resolution of 1 hour. It means in 24 hours we have 24 different images over Indian region in the sounder. While in imager has half an hour resolution. We have 48 images. But in imager we cannot get vertical profiles of temperature and humidity, wherein sounder we can get these vertical profiles. These are the channel specifications of sounder. Here the carbon dioxide absorbing channel used to detect temperature, and water vapor channel is used to detect humidity. We have 1 visible channel and 18 infrared channel. Among these, 6 are short wave, 5 are mid wave, and another 6 are long wave IR channel. So these are the radiance measured by INSAT 3D sounder at different channel. So what you can think as sounder has 18 different eyes, and from each eye it is seeing Indian region like this. So each eye has different kind of vision. From this 18 channels we can get temperature profile at various level like this. So this you can think of as 3-dimensional graph. This is 2-dimensional surface plot, where this red you can think of as a high temperature and blue as low temperature. Means this is hot and this is cold. And as we go up in the atmosphere, temperature decreases, as I have shown in this graph. Okay, as we go up in the atmosphere, temperature decreases. 1 kilometer temperature decreases by 6 degrees Celsius. So here also we can see the same pattern. Temperature is decreasing as we going up in the atmosphere, and also humidity also decrease as we go up in the atmosphere. So here you can see the red region becoming blue as we going up. Here also red regions becoming blue. So to summarize the today topic in what we have learned in today's lecture, the process of obtaining information from the earth atmosphere from a distance, this is the important thing, from a distance without having any physical contact using weather satellite is known as remote sensing of atmosphere. The atmospheric sounding theory is based on the Planck's law of emitted radiation from black bodies and radiative transfer equations. And what are the advantage of using satellite over in situ observation? What is the advantage of doing remote sensing of atmosphere? First, we have coverage over a large area. We have coverage over night time also, and we have frequent coverage, half hourly imager. So we have images of Earth at every half an hour, and one day one image is data has size around 500 MB. So in one day we have 48 images. So we have 24 GB satellite data comes every day from INSAT 3D. So such a huge amount of data. A lot of things can be done using these data, such as it is highly effective in disaster management, tropical cyclone prediction. If a one day before we predict this tropical cyclone is about to come, we can save a lot of life of human beings. And it's very useful in oceanic study over oceanic region, ocean science, phytoplankton, marine life. It's very useful, and above all it's very cost effective, because we cannot put radio sonde at each and every point. We cannot put buoy, we can not survey the entire ship over ocean. So what we do, we can send one satellite, and one satellite has average life around 10 to 15 years. So for 10 to 15 years we can get data every day, every half an hour. So this is the advantage of using satellite. So this was the lecture on remote sensing of atmosphere. Now if you have any doubts, then you can ask. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom. And now, on behalf of all of our college students, I would like to promise you that I'll put your words into practice. And now, we'd like to ask you permission to introduce a few doubts and questions put forward by our active audience. Shall I?
Yes, beta, please go.
First question is by Nikhil Gupta. What is temporal resolution?
Yeah, temporal resolution is the amount of duration in which we get the images. For example, if we have geostationary satellite, we can have images at every half an hour. So INSAT 3D imager has temporal resolution of 30 minutes, half an hour. But what if we have polar satellite? So polar satellites cannot have the observation at same region every time. So it will have two observation. Normally it will have two observation at a time. So it will have temporal two observation in a day. So it will have temporal resolution of how much? 12 hours. So if we define exactly what is the temporal resolution is, the amount of at the same location, first we fix the location, the frequency of data. You get the meaning? Yeah.
The second question is also by Nikhil Gupta, and that is, there is multi-spec
four types of resolution in remote sensing: spatial, spectral, temporal, and radiometry. So in spectral resolution, what we see, ideally the radiance is defined as monochromatic radiance. Monochromatic means single wavelength, but in really we cannot design a detector that can be as single wavelength. So we have, yeah, what was the question? Multispectral. What is the difference between multispectral and hyperspectral? So in multispectral we have multiple channels, but not very large number of channels. We can have 18 channels or 20 channels, and these channels have little broad bandwidth. Bandwidth you can think of at the range of wavelength. Suppose a 10.8 micron channel has not exactly wavelength at 10.8. It will have a Gaussian curve which has a peak at 10.8, but it will vary from 10 to 12. So in multispectral we may have 18 channel, 20 channel, like this, but in hyperspectral we have huge number of channels like AIRS and IRC. They have thousands of channels. If we look at infrared atmospheric IRC that launched by EUMETSAT, they have 8,461 channels. So when we have such a large number of channels, what we have small bandwidth, and we can have so many observation at different spectral regions. That is known as hyperspectral.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And there is another question put forward by Arpu Jyoti Majumdar. And she says she wants to ask that is there any technology for remote sensing of dark matter, and how can we do that? And what are T and Q profiles?
Yeah, T means temperature and Q means humidity. Is there any technology of remote sensing of dark matter? Till now, I don't know about that. Dark matter, that's why the reason we say it's dark, because we don't know clearly about that. We are in dark about dark matter. And my work is based on the atmospheric science. I studied atmosphere in my BTech, but this remote sensing of dark matter, till now it's not done. If you do X-ray and gamma ray astronomy, there may be some techniques they may have to do. So I don't know much about that remote sensing of dark matter. And T and Q profiles are temperature and humidity. Yeah.
So there is one more question put by Megha Reddy. She wants to ask that have we found any signs of life on another planet? And she simply wants to ask that have we known anything about aliens yet?
What was the question? Sorry.
So the question was, she wants to ask if there are aliens, if the aliens exist.
Is there a?
So she wants to ask, do the aliens exist?
Aliens? Maybe or may not be, because
Sir, please unmute yourself.
do aliens
Sir, you
exist?
have to unmute yourself.
Oh, I didn't know when I muted myself. I'm audible? Yeah. So, aliens, yes, there is quite a possibility that aliens exist, because if you think of the size of universe is around 13.6 billion light years. So, what we know about universe, till now we do not know about 0.00001% of universe. So, the 99.99999% we don't know. So there is quite a lot of possibility that aliens exist. The problem is we are unable to communicate with them till now. Maybe in future they may communicate to us, or we may. Who knows?
Thank you, sir, for this answer. And another question, maybe this is the last one, put it up by Buddhi Kashyap. He wants to ask if, how is it possible to work as a doctor in ISRO or DRDO?
work as a doctor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so there are posts available for doctor also. The medical officers are there. So if you get any vacancy, then you can apply that. Yes. As a doctor, also ISRO is a organization, so it has place for every profession. We have engineers, scientists, doctors, and we have cook also. So as a doctor, I think I answered the question, yeah? Or yeah,
Yes, sir. Sir, I have a question.
yes, sir.
I want to ask, since our students are majorly from BSc background, BSc Physics honors and BSc major in computer and chemistry. So, what are the possibilities for them to join ISRO? Since they are not doing BTech, they are from Bachelors of Sciences.
So for BSc and MSc, there used to be on vacancy based, I think. So you check the keep a tab on the career tab of ISRO, and then there will be vacancy. Then you can apply for that. Then they will take interview and a written test maybe. After interview, they will tell you the result after some time. Then you can join.
And
And
there is one more question. Few of my students are doing atmospheric sciences as a major and geophysics as a major. So, what are the future possibilities according to you in the field of atmospheric physics and geophysics?
yeah, there are very good possibility. My I work in this atmospheric and oceanic science division in this Ahmedabad. So one center is this our center, Space Application Center Ahmedabad, where we work on atmospheric science. Another center is this NRSC Hyderabad. You can here also people work on atmospheric sciences, and one more is there, NARL, National Atmospheric Research Laboratory, that is in Tirupati. So these three centers of ISRO, there people work in atmospheric sciences. So you can join in anyone according to your preferences.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank
Welcome.
you so much. So, like, you
So,
have such amazing amount of knowledge.
on the behalf of entire Bhaginivita family and research cell and all the participants, I would like to give thanks to Mr. Prateek Kumar to share this enormous knowledge with us and to make this event a success with your auspicious presence. So thank you so much, sir, for coming and joining us for the Indian Space Week celebration. Thank you so much.
Welcome.